Hi there, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Cloud-Based Mayhem. This episode is with Sebrand Warren. He represented the Netherlands in this year's Red Bull X-Alps as a rookie, and his entire team were all rookies. None of them had any experience coming into this. But we think of Sebrand as a Yank. He learned how to fly over here in the States and got all his roots here, and then last year in my race that I run, the hike and fly race that I run, the Global Rescue X Red Rocks, he did really well last year. He got second right behind Jared Scheid, who also competed in this year's Red Bull X-Alps for the first time. And over the course of the race, Sebrand kind of came the darling of the whole thing. Had just an amazing attitude, really had a tough prologue, came in hours and hours after everybody else and dead last, and got real slow there at the end and got a standing ovation at the banquet dinner that night by everybody else, which kind of boosted his spirits. But we talk about how hard that was going into the main race, just really questioning everything, who you are and the skills you have, and that's a rough way to start. And then he started tough. He really did not get into his groove and didn't get into flow and was kind of off the back and in danger of getting eliminated. And we talk about all that, just the wear and tear on the team and his mind. And he's very open about being quite ADD and how that may or may not have impacted things. And then made some nice moves at the end, and against all odds made it in to Zellemzee. The last day, he flew an outrageous line in unbelievable overdevelopment and walked through Kitzbühel in a just crazy storm. It was one of those 100-year downpours where there's 10 inches of water on the road, and a lot of that was filmed, and he just was always smiling and gung-ho and happy, and talks about his relationship with his gal and really how she played such an integral role during the race to kind of snap him out of it and get him in a better frame of mind. And we talk about navigating risk and navigating the X-Alps hangover and all kinds of things. And then, of course, just days after the end of the race where he got in healthy and in one piece, smashed up his foot real bad, top landing at Trécime, just having fun. And so he's on the road to a very long recovery when you smash that heel bone. And so we talk about that and what that looks like. But his dedication was pretty impressive. He worked with Ben Abruzzo, who trained me in all 4 of my X-Alps. He moved over to the Alps last year to just be able to focus on this race and get time in the Alps. And I really enjoyed speaking to Sebrand. I didn't know him intimately before this race, but I've got to know him over the years a little bit, and it's been awesome to see him progress and just chase down his dreams. And we had a lot of fun with this. He's pretty good at articulating what the race is all about and what it's like coming in as a rookie. It brought back a lot of memories for me. We'll get to the show here in a bit, but just wanted to say quickly that few people are having trouble accessing the bonus content we've been putting out a bit lately. There's kind of a glitch in the matrix on our side of the system when it comes to that. If you buy any swag or donate to the show, either one time or through Patreon or one of the other ways, it's supposed to kind of automatically set you up with a subscription. And the subscription end of things, I work through a company called MemberPress on that, had a glitch, and so I'm having to manually fix all of those, and it's too hard to do it through the system because there's a lot there. So if you're having any trouble, let me know. And as always, we don't put anything behind a paywall. If you can't support the show financially, you don't even have to say anything. Just send me an email, say you want access to it. I'll give you a lifetime subscription, no questions asked. So just let me know. You can do that through the website, cloudbasedmayhem.com. And by the way, it's a good time to go check out the website because we've just got a whole new load of really cool trucker hats by Recaps. Really cool colors, huge mix. As always, none of them are ever the same. Every single hat is totally unique. just got a big load of those and got a ton of new Patagonia t-shirts and stuff. So if you're needing anything, Cloud-Based Mayhem logoed, hat, t-shirts, or otherwise, go check out our store. It's a great way to support the show. And several things are on sale there. Appreciate y'all. Thanks for listening, and enjoy this show with Sebrand Warren. Sebrand, awesome to have you on the show. I've been really excited to do this. We were going to do it earlier, but then you flopped on your face, looks like. I saw your Instagram post. That was unfortunate. It sounds like you've got a pretty gnarly recovery going. So let's start there. What happened, and what's this recovery look like?
Yeah, I also wanted to start by just saying it's so crazy to be on this show. Obviously, when I first started flying, it was like the way I was learning how to do it was listening to this, and for better or for worse. But thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's not all good advice.
Yeah. And there's not going to be a ton of good advice on this one either. So everyone, if you're just learning, just turn off your headphones now.
Right. But you'll get some great stories.
Yeah. So yeah, I was a hero. I'd just gotten the most attention I've ever had in my whole life. I think Red Bull Adventure had just posted this reel of me, and it had gotten 300,000 views, and I was like, man, I'm fucking sky god. And my team hadn't all headed their separate ways yet, so we were driving back towards Grenoble and decided to stop in Sexton and go have lunch at the hut where the Via Ferrata was. And David Chen lands up there, no problem. He lands by the lakes, which is a nice green field, and he's already hiked up and is about to order and sees me coming in. And I'm like, okay, he's standing right next to the hut. I should land right next to him. It's why land at those lakes down there with the nice green grass when I've been doing the X-Alps for the last 2 weeks? I can land anywhere, and I don't even consider the possibility that could go wrong. During the race, I was super good about always giving myself a ton of margin, and okay, top landings are always serious, especially midday. That was just very present in my mind during the race, and I think my ego was totally blocking any sense of self-preservation in that moment, and I just went in for this landing right next to David, and the thermal broke off right in front, so all of a sudden I had no airspeed and no flare authority, and there was a rock in the middle of the trail that I was going to land on, and like a beginner pilot, I focused right on that rock and landed right on that rock with my left heel, and it immediately felt like an explosion in my foot. But still, I tried. I rolled, landed okay, and tried to convince myself that it was just a sprain. But I knew for sure it felt different than a sprain. I've sprained my ankle plenty of times throughout my life, even before flying. So yeah, we had to get a helicopter off the mountain, which was my first time in a helicopter and hopefully my last for rescue situations. And then yeah, the doctors in Bolzano told me that it was broken, and that they didn't really give me any sort of info on what the recovery was like. So I was still kind of under the impression that this would be 3 to 6 weeks, just to let the bone heal. And then so we decided we were going to take a couple of days to drive back to Grenoble, but I was in so much pain. Turns out breaking your heel is one of the most painful things to break in your whole body. I just said I don't want to deal with this anymore with the uncertainty. Let's just drive all the way to Grenoble tonight. So we got to Grenoble at 3 a.m. Woke up at 9 after one night back at my house, and went to the hospital. And the surgeon, after looking at the X-rays, was like, "Yeah, this is, your heel is in an uncountable number of pieces, and you've got a long recovery ahead of you." So I immediately called my brother-in-law, who's a surgeon in Alabama, and he gave me the awesome news that most athletes don't come back from this injury, and that I should kiss my X-Alps dreams goodbye. So that was not a great phone call. For now, I've decided to just ignore him, and I know for a fact that people have come back from this injury. I've talked to a few people, a lot of people reached out on Instagram after I posted the video, and a lot of them are like, yeah, it was 15 years ago, and I can't remember which heel it was. And other people are 3 years out and they're like, yeah, it still hurts if I do a long day, but you know, it
Can do it.
I can still do it. So my hope is that if I really focus on the recovery and pay attention and train in ways that are conducive to that recovery, that, maybe I'm not the best on the ground in 2 years, but maybe in 4 years I am again. So, or I get there.
I like how you're thinking. That's good. I mean, it's good to have goals to get through these things. I mean, we just saw, Aaron Duragati win, first
Exactly.
non-Swiss win, and he was, told he wasn't going to walk, let alone compete.
Yeah.
I was there in 2015 when he blew his knee apart. Yeah, no, it's coming down 2017 in the prologue that he destroyed his knee and had to
Yeah.
bow out that year, and then look what he's done. So
And he came back the
keep your eye on
next
prize.
race. So yeah. No, I think that surgeons are used to dealing with normal people, and we're not normal. So
you fly a paraglider, you're automatically not normal. As not normal as you are. Okay, well then that begs the next question. This is I'd like to call it the Red Bull X-Alps hangover that we all go through after it's over. You and I talked about this a little bit right after the race in Zell. I think then it was probably too fresh. You had just finished, but this is a multiplier. Imagine of that, getting hurt right afterwards. I'm sure, this is just your classic complacency accident, right? I mean, it's ego over everything else, and we all do that. And luckily it wasn't worse. I saw it. You did a great PLF and everything. It's just like you said, in some parts bad luck, some parts just beginner mistake. But how does that combine with the hangover? How is the post race come down treating you?
I don't know how to even separate them out.
Oh yeah.
It feels like really just I went from being in my peak shape with you've worked with Ben far more than I have. You know how much he's focused on getting your feet into shape for this race. So I felt like I'd built these perfect feet. I didn't have a single foot issue the whole race. Not a blister, not any plantar fasciitis, which I've struggled with a ton in the past. No Achilles bursitis, which I've struggled with a bunch in the past. I've done all the training to get rid of all of those foot issues and built these 2 perfect feet. And then I just totally broke one of them. And I feel like that's been a much bigger depression for me in the last month than not having the race as a goal anymore. I feel like it's I went from having this crazy goal of the X-Alps to now having this crazy goal of coming back from this, which I think has protected me from a bit of the post-race depression.
Probably, yeah.
But I've definitely had I cope with my ADHD and anxiety by going and running up a mountain, and now I can't do that. So
your poor girlfriend.
Oh, and my poor girlfriend. She's been incredible, and yeah, she also has questioned how experiencing this. We've been talking about kids. She's like, I don't know how I'm gonna work and have kids, if it's this hard to work and have a boyfriend with a broken foot.
Yeah, we always say, make sure you have a pet before you have a kid, and just to give you a little bit of the taste of, it's not always easy.
Yeah, when we first started dating, I broke my hand in a very hilarious paragliding motorcycle accident. And this is much worse because when I broke my hand, I could still walk around and do things. I could go to the kitchen and get a cup of water. When you have a broken foot, you can't carry things and move at the same time. It's if I need a glass of water, I'm like, hey, can you get me a glass of water? And so we if we're watching a movie together, she has to do everything. It's really terrible.
Yeah. I imagine that's not very easy on your own ego.
But it's also going from the X-Alps, where for 2 weeks everyone's doing everything for you, to being injured and everyone still is doing my team has come and visited a couple times and they're still just acting like my supporters. It's just I'm so ready to be a supporter now and I can't.
Yeah. Oh man. Yeah, no kidding. I mean, that's part of the come down. That's part of what was always so hard for me, and I know you experienced it fully. Is just this incredible going to war kind of sensation or experience for 2 weeks with your team, and the bonds and the laughter
Hmm.
and the I know you guys had a special experience on that side of the not just your own flying and all that kind of thing, but just the this wild ride that you go through with these people
Yeah.
is unrepeatable and unimaginable before you've done it, and then it's just boom. In your case, you get to the raft, and historically in the race, most people don't. It's just over wherever you are, and then everybody leaves, and no one's cooking you pancakes anymore. It kind of
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah. No, yeah, totally. It does suck to be over. But I wish they weren't cooking me pancakes anymore. I wish I was the one cooking the pancakes. And now I'm finally getting like mobile enough that I can like hop around, and now I can make dinner for my girlfriend again, which feels really good, and really excited to make dinner for my teammates once they come and visit again. So,
Right. Let's rewind the clock here a little bit because not everybody is totally familiar with your story. I'm not even sure I am, but I know a bit of it. That it to start with, we all see you as a Yank. You learned to fly over here, and so I think there's a lot of confusion with the flag you were racing for, but also just you haven't been at this very long. It was I think for many people from the outside going, wow, he's going to go compete in the Red Bull X-Alps, and so there's a whole story in itself there, but you decided that this was going to be your game, and you made some major commitments to make it so. You moved over there. I was just actually talking to a mutual friend of ours, Logan, who I do the races with over here, and who competed in 23. And from an XApp standpoint, I kind of see Logan as a mentee of mine in a sense. I helped him quite a bit just in preparation and stuff for that race. And I was just talking to him few hours ago that, hey, are you going to do it again? And his first thing he said was, I just don't know. I don't see how it's possible to really compete. In other words, top 10
yep.
without. I don't, even if I moved over there, I don't see how it would be possible because the top 10 they live there, they work there, they know that place so much more intimately than we can, the rest of the world who doesn't live in the Alps, and it isn't a profession. You've got a profession. You're a worker bee. You have a job that's not paragliding, but you definitely made some big moves. Let's just talk about that. Well, what was it that made you decide, hey, I'm gonna change my life for this race?
I think I was incredibly naive. First of all, uh, like always for the best, right? It's always better to be a bit naive. I think for most things in life. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I'd experienced success in my regular career, so I was kind of like a little prince there. I graduated college and gotten with a design degree and gone straight to Apple. So I was like, wow, it doesn't take that much to get to the top. And
Mm.
it definitely I worked hard for those 4 years in college, and like it was super cool popping out there. And so, and then I was it was easy after Apple to kind of just make enough money contracting and design that I started having more and more free time. So putting more and more of that into something else. Originally, it was climbing, and then I discovered paragliding. So I was putting more and more time into paragliding and less time into making money, and then eventually just uh, decided if I really wanted to take doing something like the X-Alp seriously, I had to treat it the same way I did design when I was 18 and put myself in it fully. So for the last 2 years ago, training for the X Pier, I was a horrible slacker at work, and just after the X Pier actually got let go, they didn't say it was because of my performance, but I honestly felt that it was. um, but I was basically doing two full-time jobs for the year before the X Pier, training for the X Pier, and when they let me go, I was like, okay, well, I want to do the X Alps, so I just won't take another job, and I'll just treat this like a job. And I think that was pretty much essential to do as well as I hoped to do at the X-Alps. It didn't necessarily go that way, but I definitely feel like there's a few learnings that I have that I could apply to the next one. Um, yeah, I think I discovered that I loved paragliding enough to pursue it that completely. Um, and I found that love, I think at a young age, I knew that I wanted to fly. Just like it, I think like a lot of us, it just is like this, like it is the pinnacle of experience. It seems like getting to do magic in real life to be able to fly, whether it's an airplane or some other aircraft. I didn't know what paragliding was until I was probably 19 or 20, probably actually 21. Um, and when I finally
How old are
got
you
to do,
now?
I'm 32, so not the
Okay.
youngest for taking my
Oh,
first
dude, I
swing at
hadn't
this
even
race.
started paragliding at 32. You got plenty of
Yeah,
time.
yeah. No, I mean you're definitely an inspiration in that sense. I realized that and you see a lot of guys like competing at a high level in this sport quite old, even in hike and fly, and that was also a consideration that like I'm still within the age bracket that I could be competitive in hike and fly. Um, just like looking at it all, like obviously I didn't start flying when I was 14, like some of the guys, or 10, like some of the guys winning this race. But if you looked at the guys below the top 10, it was like, oh, a lot of them have actually only been flying for 5 or 6 years when they first started doing this race. And I wasn't the most rookie of the people there. I think Gabby has been flying for like 4 years now, and he was in the top three for the first 4 days of the race. So um, yeah, I think I learned from the Eastern Sierra hike and fly race that Logan put on as one of his first USA hike and fly competitions back in 2022. I think that you can do really well in hike and fly just by forecasting well and trusting a strategy. And in that race, I think there was Logan and Jesse Williams and Jeffrey Longcore all, and Kevin Carter, all much more experienced both on the ground and in the air than me. And I stuck to a plan and came in first in that race. And I realized like, oh, okay, there's a lot you can do in hike and fly that pulls from your mental experience, not just from your physical experience. So if I can build up the physical experience and the flying skill, then I could be competitive in this sport. And I don't know if it means I can be in the top 10 at the X-Alps. That's definitely a goal. I think I would actually love to podium one day. Um, it seems crazy, but I think if I stay in the Alps and keep training here, I can gain a lot of the skills that those top guys learned from having been here their whole lives, as long as I can do that without getting horribly injured.
So you weren't discouraged in any way from this race. This was just a little bit of the uh I was going to say something inappropriate there. What would be appropriate to say? Yeah, this is just sky crack. This was candy that you want to keep chasing.
I was more than it was more. I mean, it was more nutritional than candy, I think. And uh, I think if anything, it's done a lot to motivate me even more. Um, it's made me question a lot of things as well. I think something that happened while pursuing this fully was I started to think about how I'm going to make money from paragliding if I decide not to go back to my design job. Um, and this was actually I'll if I make a documentary for this, it'll be a big part of the conversation of like how this like idea that you're good enough to make money from this, that you could get sponsorship, like how that impacts your thinking. And I'm very curious to learn how other athletes have dealt with this in the past, because I guarantee that as a rookie athlete, I'm not the first person to let it go to my head, and it ultimately put me in a pretty crappy place in terms of the sport. Um, but we can go to that more. I think that the
Are
question
you
you asked,
talking about making sure that once if you pursue the media sponsorship side of things, that then that changes in a sense, like if you become a tandem pilot, it does this in a sense. It becomes your job. It changes your perception of what you love. Is that what you're
yeah,
talking about?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, and sponsorship even more so than tandems, because like your performance matters to someone other than you,
Mm.
which is really weird.
Yeah.
um,
I mean, why not? I know that that's the general path, right? It was really interesting for me to sit down with Patrick Von Cannell right after the race. I think you were there. We were having breakfast that one
Hmm.
morning, and he was mentioning that he does tandems and interlocking, and I said, "You're a Red Bull athlete, and you're still doing tandems? Why?" And he said, "Well, yeah, my wife and I we redid this house, and it's not enough. I don't think there's that many pilots in the world, less than five. This is a guess, but." That are actually making a living from sponsorship. Most of the,
Exactly.
Simone and Tommy and Patrick and, Kriegel might be the only one. I don't know, but he gives a lot of talks. I mean, I don't think it's just the logos that you see on his bag. I mean, given how well you do in design, why not do design and then just be totally free?
Yeah.
I don't know.
So that was a really important realization from this race is that okay, like if some sort of athletic sponsorships fall in my lap, great. But I cannot mentally handle the pressure of at all relying on those as like a desirable future. So yeah, I'm rebuilding my design resume and looking for
I mean, it's
contracts
just
again.
it's an
It's
it's
just
a, it's an interesting thing. I mean, I think that there's just so many. I went through the exact same thing. I mean, I grew up ski racing. I grew up in this world of sponsorship, and it's always been. I love playing that game, but the game that we are playing is not F1. It's not soccer. It's not
no,
football. It's just,
there's no
it's so
jackpot.
hard. You can get a wing, you can get
Yeah.
some shoes, you
Hmm.
can get stuff, but the amount of work that you go through to do that versus being a designer at Apple and just buying the stuff, I don't know. You know what I mean?
No, you're
It's
totally
it's
right.
interesting.
And this has solidified that realization even deeper. And it's
Mm.
no matter how good the athlete is, if you talk to them about this and you say that you can make 150 an hour doing design work, they're like, don't stop doing that.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just you're in a really rare
Yeah.
echelon to get up in those kind of numbers, and not in paragliding.
Yeah.
It's a pretty hard go. Anyway, I'm not an expert. It's just I think about this a lot because I have a lot of people ask, yeah, "Hey, how did you do it?" And I always think, yeah, just keep your job, man. That's the easiest way to do it. But okay, next thing I really want to ask. I mean, that's just something that it's interesting to think about. But the
Yeah.
next thing I want to ask you about is, you know, you you were a real media darling in this race. The wider world just fell in love with you because you were honest, you were deliberate in your honesty, you shared just what was going on in your head, which is not all apples and raspberry pie when you're having this race, and you came in well trained physically. Ben, who I've worked with in all my campaigns, so you knew you had that in the bag. You knew you were going to be fit. Everything was lining up. You had maybe in your mind, hey, I can compete with these folks, and I can do pretty well. And then you had the prologue, and walked in as everyone had sat down for dinner.
Yeah. Oh my god.
And you and I talked about this in the interview we did after the race, but take it from there. I mean, what was happening in your mind when you go out to race with everybody day one in the prologue? It's just a fun thing. It's just a media event, but everybody takes it more seriously than they plan on doing it because adrenaline and ego. And I mean, you had a day that day.
Yeah. Yeah, and I also wasn't really thinking about it when I started the day, but if you do really, really terribly in the prologue, it does impact the rest of your race significantly. Like starting
Right.
5.5 hours after the leaders on the second day is like it's not insignificant. Uh, so yeah, starting off that day, I was actually like, I knew I wasn't in the best headspace. I was like, I hadn't really enjoyed flying like I had a year prior in the X in the last like 3 or 4 months.
Oh,
I
wow.
was doing it every day and like making it like feel as natural as walking. But I think making it the only thing in my life and feeling like a little bit of financial insecurity around it, like really screwed with my head. And
Hmm.
I saw it happening like a couple of months before the race and like tried to back off. I tried to like just I thought I was just flying too much. So I started flying a little bit less before the race, just focused on like doing the really challenging days and making sure that I was learning how to fly in crazy wind. And that actually made it worse because I was then like feeling like scared every time I wanted to go fly because I was like, well, every time I fly, I'm flying in like 30K wind and it kind of sucks. And so yeah, I wasn't in the best mental space with just like knowing my joy for the sport. Um, but I knew that I could remember feeling that way. So I was trying to find that. And then I woke up the morning of the prologue with a cold. So it was just another thing that was just like, it wasn't a
Another
bad
layer.
cold, but it was just like, well, shit, like I'm not feeling super stoked. I'm not feeling super physically fit. And now I have to go do this prologue. And I managed to get back into a good headspace for the first sprint and like got up there maybe like a couple of minutes after Lars and some of the other super strong guys. And took off into the first thermal. I took like a few good turns with Patrick, and we were kind of on top of the gaggle. And I started flying a little more aggressively, thinking I could keep on out climbing them. And then I took one turn and got like maybe 10 meters below the gaggle, and that was like enough for my fragile mental state to just completely collapse. And all of a sudden, it was impossible to get back up and join them. I was like, oh, they're so much better. I'm just like not good enough to be here. I don't know what's going on. Like I just have no idea how to fly.
Mm.
And like 10 minutes later, I was on the ground and I landed right next to freaking Nicola Heiniger, who's like, I know he's an incredible pilot. He also bombed out. I should have seen that and been like, oh, it's just a challenging day. Like if you take one wrong turn, you end up on the ground. It's one of those days. It's just luck. And instead, I was still just making it all about me being a bad pilot. And it's just like I'm not like that. Like that is not who I am. But I just like in the last 3 months, like let this something creep in. Um, and yeah, I spent the whole day just in that mindset. So I took off next to Nicola. He climbed out. I flew down to the valley and hiked 1,000 meters to the next turn point, and ended up doing that like 3 times that day. Uh, and yeah, finished 5.5 hours after. But even on my last glide, even on my glide towards the last turn point, like the day was still working. There were still people behind me. And I still felt like even though there were people behind me, I was in my head. I was in last place. I was like, I
Mm.
am the worst pilot in this group. Like, I'm going to be in last place, even though there were people behind me. And like, Andre flew past me, top landed just in front of me, hiked up to the turn point and flew down to goal. And I, like, instead of landing next to him, kept on gliding right past him, flew down the side of the mountain and hiked up from the bottom, totally off course line. It was like, it just didn't make any sense. Like, I'm smarter than that. I'm a better pilot than that. I'm more like nothing. It was such a mental battle that whole day, and I felt like such total shit. And then I walked into the freaking ceremony and everyone's so freaking stoked. Like I think if they hadn't done that, I would have started the race off much worse. That really the amount of the community just kind of came in to believe in me and support me in that moment it was really moving.
Interesting. I mean, you said that, for 3 months you're in this kinda weird space, but that wasn't you. That had to have been a mental I mean, I get it that everybody, cheered you on and maybe brought you out of it, but what was Friday, Saturday like for you before the race? So the prologue's Thursday. I would imagine that would have been tough.
Yeah, I woke up Friday still feeling pretty shitty. And it was like it's still I was like trying to ride that momentum from like all the support from the community, but it's still like it couldn't it couldn't all come from outside. There was something deeper happening inside of me that I couldn't shake. And I spent Friday just the whole day in bed trying to make sure that that cold didn't get worse, and woke up on Saturday and was still not feeling great. And my team was like, dude, you need to just go fly and remind yourself that you know how, like with no pressure. So I like took the lift up and had like a nice 3 hour flight and felt like I was getting out of it. Like I really enjoyed that flight. I landed super stoked and was like, cool guys, we're ready for tomorrow. We're gonna put the prologue behind us and tomorrow is gonna be awesome. And we started the first hike on the very first day of the race. I still had that cold and it was definitely having an impact on me, but I still something like I had not shaken it. I did that hike and I felt like I was pushing in zone 5 and my heart rate was below 145, which for me is normally like a mid zone 2. So something was off. And it wasn't just that I was sick, and I think it was definitely more so that I was still just in this weird headspace. Um, and I got to the top, realized I was still in a bad place, just like was flying kind of on instinct, just like on autopilot, and was able to kind of keep up with everyone until a critical move came. And I missed a thermal, got stuck behind a ridge. I think you were actually pretty close to me. We both kind of missed this thermal and had to fly super far off course line and go around
Mm-hmm.
just after crossing the main spine. Um, and then I found this epic climb, just again, still pretty much flying on autopilot, asking my team like what other people were doing, like really just not flying on my own, like constantly being like, hey guys, where's the next thermal? Like, would you guys like trying to be flown by remote control, even though I was fresh and like should have been able to make good decisions still. Um, yeah, I was asking to be flown remote control and just be a racehorse. And I followed Christian Schug's line from this climb, and he'd done it from 200 meters below me, probably 30 minutes earlier, maybe just 10 minutes earlier. And I came into the next ridge, like 50 meters below ridge height, and he'd crossed it with like 100 meters to spare. And then everything just fell apart. Like I ended up having to go back to that thermal. It didn't work. I landed in the valley and then ran 30 kilometers in 2,000 meters and finished the day 40 kilometers behind the next person. So, yeah, it was just my ego was so fragile. Like one thing would go wrong and I would be just like completely doomsday.
Mm. And you've got a special share the story about your girlfriend and Ascona. I mean, we're jumping way ahead, and if we're jumping too far ahead, slow me down.
I
But
think that one's
it
actually
sounded
that's on day 10, so we could jump to that, but there's plenty that happens in between.
okay. That's too far. But I mean, did you really not get your mojo back until then?
No, I think I was super fragile and just getting worse all the way up until day 3, and then
Okay.
I finally, like, I think pulling the night pass and running all night, like, somehow took me out of it. I ran from second to last place, just like 10 kilometers ahead of Hugo, all the way to like sixth to last, and I finished at 8 a.m. like I think like 13 kilometers ahead of Hugo. Um, and
That guy, we should give him a clap right now. I mean,
dude,
I did put this out on social, but holy
yeah,
cow, people don't know this story as well as they should, but man, he threw down.
he did.
That was impressive.
Yep,
I mean, it's impressive that he made you guys. I mean, it's impressive that
dude,
Andre just went to sleep thinking there's no chance, and
that was
he almost
crazy.
got snagged.
Yep. No, I think Andre was like just like 5 or 6 kilometers ahead of him at the end.
Yeah,
Yeah,
impressive,
super
impressive.
impressive. Yeah.
But so you were saying, so that helped just going
That
all
helped so
night?
much. It helped so much. And I
Really?
had a nice win the day before, and I think it was like I let go of something on the third day. Like I was like, there's no way I'm racing 12 days. There's no way I'm finishing this race. Like the idea of sponsorship and stuff like that, like I'm not good enough. Like it doesn't matter. I'm just gonna fly. And my team kind of said it. They were like, look, if we're out in 24 hours, let's keep going. Like we're having a good time. Like you should be having a good time too. Like let's just enjoy a 12-day adventure. And I I had like a big breakdown on a mountain and called Katie, and she like just listened to me cry for 30 minutes, but that wasn't the moment where I really came out of it. But I think I left a lot on that mountain. And I left a lot of expectation. Um and it wasn't like a complete cure, but it was the beginning of the up, I think, for me.
Mm,
Um
mm.
so so yeah, I finished that day running the whole night and feeling not even hopeful, just like at peace with my situation. And then yeah, we finished at 8 a.m. still in the race, and like that was like that alone was a cherry on top, and everything from there was just a cherry on top. Like every additional day we were still in the race was just like a cherry on top of what was going to be a total nightmare. And I think once everything was just extra, it felt so much easier to be myself and to push hard.
Have you thought about this for 27? Now we're really jumping ahead, but I think expectation can be, it was my downfall, honestly. I mean, 2015, going in like you did, I had no clue where I stood. I really didn't know if I had never done a hike and fly race.
That's
They didn't
crazy.
have
That's
a
so
hike and fly
crazy.
race every weekend all over the world. Well, it's just also a different time.
Yeah.
It wasn't there was the Verico fly and the Eiger was just, I think that was the first year of the Eiger, but they didn't have, I can't do the X period because I don't have the knees for that first day, so there's some things I just couldn't do. But yeah, anyway, it was my first race. I had no idea if I was just going to be eliminated right off the bat. I just had no idea where I stood. And thankfully, I had the opposite prologue experience from you. I had a great prologue and got third, but that just gave me this huge boost. But I still really didn't know the whole race. I mean, I
Yeah.
went from first day flying 180K, being fourth at the end of the day, to being, 18th 2 days later, just blowing it over and over and over again. But my point is, at the end of that race, I made Monaco. It all went great. I was in eighth, and I thought, oh my God, man, if I really train hard and I really, I could podium in this thing. And then having that, having a goal like that, I've learned is really stupid.
Yeah.
But also just psychologically, I could never get out of that. It was actually better for me personally, my performance, to be ignorant in a sense and to have no expectation, to give that up, and just have fun,
Yeah.
and it's like I watched Simone. I'm sure he has goals, but he sure seems like he's having a lot of fun, and
Yeah.
he's never done worse than sixth.
Mhm.
He's done pretty well at this race. I don't know.
Yeah, and he's incredibly
So if you,
consistent.
I know you're analytical. You think about stuff. You're a smart guy. How do you have you thought about that for the next one?
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I think expectation is such a double-edged sword because it in your training, it can be actually super motivating to like be like, I want to be the best I can be. And like, I think if you have zero expectation, you can kind of just get a little too relaxed and not like, I have ADD. When I have some sort of deadline or goal, like it motivates me. It's the only way I can really push. Um,
Mm,
I don't know if you relate to that at all, but like having some expectation is great. But then once the race comes, I have to completely let go of it. And I think that's such a challenge.
mm,
That I would like to work with somebody, I think, in preparation for 2027 on that.
mm. Yeah. I I got some benefit working with some. I worked with Thomas Terrello, Kriegel's coach and supporter for quite a while, and it was really interesting. I learned a lot about, yeah, goals, strengths, what to focus on, what not to focus on.
Yeah.
It was very helpful. But I could never get out of my own way. I mean, even getting the help, the going into the last couple that I did, was I could never get out of my own way. Just again having that expectation and having maybe the wrong goal. I don't know. You learned in this one that you do well when you're free, right? And
Hmm.
when you're free to do your thing and you're just flying as you know how to fly, not how you should fly or
Yeah.
what other people have done. I don't know. Uh, isn't that helpful?
Yeah. Yeah. And it would be I would be super like stoked if I could just come into 2027 with that mentality and just be like, yeah, I'm just gonna fly my own race. And like I'm gonna tell
Yeah,
myself that. It's gonna be my mantra. And I think having it be your main goal and actually following it are two different things. So
totally.
it's so
That's
easy
the
to slip
problem.
into
I
the
can
wrong
say
thing.
all this stuff,
Uh-huh.
but I could never live it. That
Yeah.
was,
But I think that was like
that's why,
for the Born to Fly just a month before, I had zero expectation. I'd done pretty mediocre in it the previous two times I'd done it. Like first time I got 34th, second time I got 36th, and I was like, okay, well, how am I going to compete with the French guys that live here? And yeah, then this year I kind of went into it just like this will be a nice way to train with the team. Like I'm going to be super focused on just making sure that the team gets to ask the questions that they want, figure out what works for them, and we won't worry about position in the Born to Fly. And I came in ninth place, and it was like, what the fuck? Like, okay, great. And so that's the right mentality is like we're just gonna do this to learn. And we're gonna push as hard as we can, but we're not gonna worry about where we are. And that worked super well. So yeah, how to put yourself in that headspace that for me is the only headspace where I can really go into flow is, yeah, I need to figure out how to do that all the time.
Yeah. Well, yeah, good luck with that. Yeah, it's a tough one. Did day 2 help with the North Fern and being ratty? Did that help or hurt? Your mental space
We kind of
that you've
missed
been
it.
struggling with.
Like I took off at 10:30 a.m. that day, which is I guess kind of when the North Phone was just starting, and had like a beautiful ridge soaring flight into Sexton. And then by the time I'd gotten up to take off again after the Via Ferrata, the North Phone had kind of gone away. Had been kind of smushed by the thunderstorms, I guess. And I took off under a thunderstorm and had like this like 10K flight that was honestly not sketchy at all. I thermaled maybe 10 minutes in the rain, but it wasn't like a downpour. Um, so when I saw the videos that evening of people taking off in like from Moreno 2000 in like 35-kilometer-hour winds, I was pretty surprised. It didn't hit me. So I never really had those conditions on day 2.
What's a memorable high and low from the race? When you're sitting around now with your girlfriend, what are the memories that really are embedded?
Yeah, there are so many. I can pick one just kind of random. Um, I think one of the coolest flights in the race was actually probably only 15 or 20 kilometers. Um, it was just after we'd done like the 200K day back from Dews Alps all the way through the Aosta Valley, and the forecast for that day was terrible. I think the middle pack didn't fly at all that day. So it was a big opportunity for us to gain some ground, but we didn't think it was. It looked like thunderstorms everywhere, and when it wasn't thunderstorming, it was going to be like 50-kilometer-an-hour winds at the top of lift and gust fronts on the ground. So we were planning to do a 6,000-meter hiking day with 50 kilometers of distance on the ground and hoping for maybe one nice glide, uh, if the weather allowed. And I remember hiking up with Jay Collins. Is that his name? Jay Collins.
Yep.
Up to the first hike, and the wind hadn't really come in yet. So I was like, okay, we'll take off. And I take off, and I've got my team like watching the wind meters on the ground to make sure that it's not getting sketchy. And that's huge, by the way, to have a team giving you like 2-minute updates on the wind on the ground. It makes flying in fucked up X-Alps conditions like way safer. But I took off, found this crazy lee side thermal up to 3,000 meters, and I was like, wait a minute, I can like fly through the next pass that I was originally planning on hiking. So I'm like, I've already saved myself 3 hours today. So I go on glide, and then my team's like, hey, we're getting like 40-kilometer-an-hour wind in the valley. Might be time for you to find like a place in the lee and land. So like, get out of here, dude. Go fast. So like, I go downwind, and like, just as I'm about to fly through the pass, I start to accelerate, and I'm going towards this pass at like 60 kilometers an hour with no bar, and I blast through it. And on the other side of it is the Atrea, Atrea airspace. I forgot what it's called. It's like this
Oh,
the 600-meter AGL
yes.
airspace. So I go through this
Heading
pass.
into towards the lakes.
Yeah, I go through this pass, and I'm like immediately getting an airspace warning that like I need to stay below 600 meters AGL. So I'm like, well, I guess like I'll just fly into the lee here, and hopefully that's like a nice safe place. Um, and it was not a nice safe place, but I managed to fly through it, and it's just getting totally rocked. Like there were moments where the wing was just falling 3 meters over my head, but staying completely open. Just all the lines are slack, and then I'd come back
Oh
under it and
God.
keep flying. and
Oh,
uh, and I managed to do that, and then like turn and burn to the next ridge and land like with like a 600-meter hike up to the next pass, and then uh, landed like with this beautiful fly on the wall landing, like totally perfect, no wind. I'm like, okay, cool. Well, I guess we'll do that again. So I hike up to the next one, and I do the same thing, and I did that. It was just like this. I felt totally in the zone at this point. So like it all was just working. Like I knew the conditions were bad, but I knew exactly what to expect, and I felt like I knew how bad they were, and that it was totally within my ability. So I did that for 2 more flights, and then had this beautiful evening glide into I forgot the name of the city just before us going to Locarno, like at the other end of the valley. Um,
Domodossola?
Domodossola, yeah. Yeah, so
Yeah.
I landed in Domodossola at the end of that day. We made like 90 kilometers on course line on a day we expected to make 50, and on a day where I think Andre, the day before, had flown 300 for the 200 we did, which was just mind blowing. That guy is he was on fire the second half of the race. Uh, but yeah, I think we started that day like 60 kilometers behind him and finished it like 15 kilometers behind him, which was pretty awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, one of your highlights has got to be the flight from Lermoos, your last
Oh
full
yeah. I mean,
day.
of
That
course,
was
that's like the no brainer.
incredible to watch, by the way. I mean, it was just what?
Yeah.
Because that weather was, it was getting nuclear by 11, at least in Zell. And, I'm just watching the radar going, he doesn't have any window to come this way. I mean, it just had to have been unbelievable what you were
That
looking at.
that day was a gift from God. I can't describe it any other way, you know. Like we just got it. We were just given this window of sunlight that appeared above us at 10 a.m. just as the day was turning on and just stayed above us. There was just this perfect little window of perfect instability. If you were too far in front of it, it was totally stable, and if you were too far behind it, you were in the rain. And it was moving just as fast as we were flying. We thought we would fly if we were lucky 2 hours that day, and then we were planning on like just even though we didn't have it and it was totally against the rules, we were just going to hike through the night and just go to goal. And if they didn't count it as a finish, then we didn't get, at least we got to fly the whole route. So we weren't really thinking about winning or finishing the race at that point. It was just like, we're just going to go. And yeah, I ended up flying instead of for 2 hours, I flew for like 5.5. It was like,
It
we
was
flew like
just unbelievable. And then
120K.
there's this clip of Kitzbühel. Literally, there's 10 inches of water running down the road in Kitzbühel. I mean, Kitzbühel had flash flooding warnings and all this stuff. I mean, it was popping up on everywhere. And then there's you just running through it with this huge smile on your face. I mean, that was when the whole community went, this guy is awesome. He's having so much fun. He's just running down a river.
Dude, that was a 100-year storm apparently in Kitzbühel. Like roofs getting
Right?
blown
It
off of
was. It
houses.
was crazy.
Yeah, I was on cloud nine. I didn't.
What a way
It
to
only
end,
felt good.
man.
Yeah, we got so lucky with that. Yeah,
Super cool. That had to have been a highlight that whole day.
that
I
whole
mean,
day
not
was
just that
absolutely
moment,
the
but
highlight. But and like the thermal that we got just after crossing the Sebrand Plateau, like it didn't seem like it should work. It still looked totally stable over Innsbruck, and it was like this climb out of the shade over a forest. And so like at that moment, I knew somebody like God was on my side, and I was going to finish this race. I was like, "This is amazing." I don't know what's happening. Yeah, like shed a single tear and was like, "All right, we got this, guys. Let's go."
I don't remember the timing of this, but I was actually live broadcasting. I think it was the night before. So you and Andra were still on your way to Laramousse, I believe.
Yeah.
And timing might be off here, but yeah, Tarquin said, and what do you think about, the last, can Sebrand or Andra make it in? And I said just flat out, there is no chance. Neither one of these guys has a chance in hell of making it in because of
Yeah,
the forecast. The forecast the next day it looked
it was
horrible.
terrible.
And I thought the same thing you did. I thought maybe he's going to get 2 hours, and we just it was a basic calculation. It was just no way.
Yeah,
There's no chance for this.
I
You'd
knew
already done
if
you'd
I could
already
fly
burned your night pass.
90K, I could make it to goal. But yeah, flying our average speed through this race, just based on how I was flying, was like around like 21 kilometers an hour. So the idea that we could fly even 60 in those 2 hours was extremely unlikely.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Well, tell the story about your girlfriend. Was that
Yeah,
Murano? Was that just the glide?
that was
That
that
was
was
really
like
special.
that was so. Like I said, it was the morning of day 4 was like the beginning of the up, but I was still a little fragile. Like I'd make one wrong move, I was flying super slow, just really conservative because I wasn't really feeling the flow. And I'd go into it periodically. Like I said, on day 9, I was getting to it like on each of those flights, and then yeah, on the morning the morning of the 10th day, we hiked up. I had this like slow but effective flight towards Locarno, but we got there a little later than we wanted, and I landed and I put a few holes in my wing, so we spent a bunch of time dealing with that. And this was a day where like we really felt like if we wanted to finish the race, which again was not no pressure anymore, but we should probably try to do like 150K if we want to finish the race. Like, so it was, I think, already 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock when I got to the top of Locarno, which was, we were already like 2 or 3 hours behind what we wanted. And so I'm like not feeling amazing. I'm not horribly bummed out, but I'm like, okay, we're going to have this like quick glide to Bellinzona, and then we'll see where we're at. We'll get it in the air as fast as possible and make the most of this day. And on the way to Bellinzona, I'm getting like a 6-to-1 glide, which is not even enough to clear like this like airspace pinch point. And if you land before that, you have like an 8 kilometer run.
The one that everybody hit. I mean, a lot of people hit that pinch point. That was,
Oh yeah,
that was a harsh airspace for a bunch of folks.
Yeah. So I, for some reason, wasn't even concerned about it when I started that flight, and then all of a sudden, and I had like 2 big holes in the front leading edge of my wing, so I should have been aware that like, hey, you need to like take any lift you can find. But yeah, I get to the point where I'm below the pinch point, and I'm like, fuck, like I'm gonna lose another hour of this like relatively good day, and that's probably 20 to 30 kilometers that I'm losing, which really it's going to be damaging. And I'm turning on this ridge lift, not going up, not going down, and just kind of cursing every time like I do a turn, and it ends up being more sink than lift. And I'm calling the team like, hey guys, like, what's the best hiking option if I land below here? Like, where should I land? And every now and then Katie's on the WhatsApp, so she can jump on these calls, and she decides at this point that she's going to listen in. And she generally doesn't say anything. She doesn't want me to like worry about how she's feeling about me flying in whatever conditions I'm flying in. But she decides that it would be prudent to jump in here, and she hears me and she's like, "Hey, Sebrand, I don't mean to jump in or anything, but maybe you could try to have a little bit of fun." And like, I just immediately I burst out into laughing. Just like, just deep belly laughs. It was exactly what I needed to hear in that moment, because yeah, I wasn't having fun, and I totally could be, because like it was awesome. Like the views were awesome, everything was awesome. There was no pressure, and I just immediately switched into fun mode. And like 2 seconds later, started turning in this 2 meter per second thermal, and got over the pinch point and flew into Bellinzona. And from that point, I was like, oh, yeah, when I'm like enjoying it, I fly so much better. Like it's like when you don't think you're going to find a thermal, you fly straight through like 5 thermals all the way to the ground. And when you aren't worried about finding a thermal, you're like, you can't get down, So yeah, from the rest of the race, that's how I was flying, and I think that was crucial for the last day, because like you said, it was there was no reason anyone would think that day was flyable, and I was flying it just totally in the zone with no expectations. And oh yeah, of course I'll find a
What a
thermal in the shade over
cool
there.
what a cool game changer.
Yeah,
And I've often tried to find mantras or little things like that that you can latch onto when you need them. Is that something you can kind of
oh, I'm gonna
stow
be
away and
I've
pull
stowed that
back
one
out?
away. I'm gonna pull it out anytime I'm flying like shit. Is like, can you
What
try
a
to have a
nice
little bit
little
of
hip
fun?
pocket flask there, you know?
Yeah, yeah. Can you try to have a little bit of fun?
That's great. I love it. And that, and it sounds like that kind of changed. That was, in a sense, a light switch went off there, right?
Yep,
That's the way you described it after the race. That it just, oh, oh yeah, this is supposed to be fun.
yep. Yeah, and then like I still totally fucked up the rest of that day, like strategy wise, but it felt good. I was like, this was an awesome day. I
Mm.
think we flew 80K that day, not the 150 we were hoping for, and less than we had the day before on a worse forecast. So it was like, but it felt like a victory. That day felt like a victory in every other way.
Tell me about your and Katie's relationship to what you do risk wise. This is a fascinating subject. Uh, she knows what you do is dangerous.
Yeah.
How do you guys treat that? How do you talk about it? How does she deal with it? Especially you talked about right in the beginning, you talked about having kids.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's always a conversation. It's really complicated, and I think a lot of us deal with this in this sport, especially even if your partner flies, and Katie does fly. Um Yeah, I mean, she knows I love it. She thinks it's awesome. She thinks flying is awesome. She obviously doesn't love it as much as I do, but she sees how it makes me feel, and like that keeps her, uh, I guess, accepting enough of it. But it's something that we work through always. And
Hmm.
I think as I start to talk more and more about having kids, like I have to really reassure her that my tolerance for risk and my margins are going to get bigger and bigger. Um, I think I'm really glad that I started doing hike and fly paragliding before having kids because I've learned a shit ton about what's safe and what's dangerous. And in the next couple of years, I would love to continue to learn so that when I have a kid, I can set more realistic margins. And I think the way I talk about that with Katie is very important.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. You're not uncommon in this sport when it comes to the ADD side of things. I don't have any statistics. I don't know if you do. If that's, if pilots are more, do what's the sample size? What's the statistic in terms of, or because for example, I know depression is a major factor in our sport.
Hmm.
But again, I don't know if is it more of a factor with pilots than it is with the normal population, and I
I have
don't
no
know
idea.
ADD either. But we both know a lot of people in the sport who have ADD, as you mentioned, you do. Does it help or hurt
Well, I
in
think
what we do?
it's dangerous and it helps. I think people with ADD, not all of them. ADD is a very like blanket.
Spectrum. Yeah.
And it's not just a spec. It's like a three-dimensional, four-dimensional spectrum. Like you can, like Katie has ADD, but she's totally different than I am, and she has like all the different symptoms from me. Um, but I think for some of us, the only time we can really go into flow is when we're really highly stimulated. So like for my partner, like when she's highly stimulated, she often shuts down or gets overwhelmed. And when I'm highly
Mm.
stimulated, I generally go into like a hyper flow focus state. And that's like great. And I think that's super helpful for flying intense conditions, um, and in like competition environments. But you can also learn to seek that out, which the conditions where you need to be fully focused when you have become a super good pilot are often also the more dangerous conditions. I think
Mm.
XC competition is like great because you can find other reasons to stay highly stimulated and fully focused. But hike and fly, it's often less densely packed, and like the places you find that high stimulation are often more based on conditions and less based on like what's the gaggle of 100 pilots around me doing.
Interesting. The Does it help training? Does it help confidence? I don't have ADD, so I don't know. I don't, well,
I
maybe I
think
do.
for
I don't
for
know.
for me, growing up with AD, I've always felt like I was not as motivated as other people. Um,
Oh,
that's always been a concern of mine that I always feel like because I'm easily distracted, like I could be using my time more efficiently, and if I could just focus better, then I would be a million times more productive. So I always feel like I'm falling short in productivity, and even like going and doing an interval run, like I find myself like, oh, I do like the first like three intervals, and then I like end up walking for 20 minutes by accident. I'm like, oh shit, I should do the other three intervals. And like I get distracted doing anything, and I never feel like I'm as like focused or motivated as somebody who's like on it all the time, or doesn't
ah,
struggle with
okay.
attention. But obviously, it doesn't actually pan out that way. I think like I can look at my achievements and see that like, oh, like I clearly have done good things. Like I must be somewhat motivated. But I always feel like my internal feeling is that I'm not motivated.
How do you anticipate something like pursuing the X Alps and hike and fly and racing changing if you have kids?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to stop doing it. It like brings me so much joy. Um, I think that there's plenty of examples of awesome pilots that keep doing it and seem to be relatively safe. Obviously, it's not like you'd be safer not flying. Um, any sort of flying. But I think like for me, yeah, building up the margins, being super honest with myself about the risks I'm taking, and communicating with Katie about that. That's the best I can do, but I have to keep doing it. Like I can't just put I can fly racing behind me just because I have kids. Um, but I will make sacrifices. I think there are definitely going to have to be sacrifices. I don't know what those are yet. I don't
Yeah,
know. What
I don't.
Have you had to do that at all?
You know, it's really interesting, and I don't know exactly how to chalk up how I feel about it. But Fallon was with me for the second one, so Maddie was really pregnant for the 2017 race. In fact, we had this whole protocol that if she went into labor, would my team tell me? This whole thing. We had
Wow.
the discussion, and she was, she was on time and everything was fine. So it was about a month after the race. And then they came over for the 2019 race. She was on my shoulders as I ran out of things. I'd seen Hansa do that with his oldest kid back in one of his races. And so I thought that'd be really fun. So anyway, for 2019, 2021, she was 2 and she was 4. And I can pretty honestly say it didn't impact me. And it wasn't just the X-Alps. There was all this other flying I was doing and competing and traveling and stuff. And I think, like you, it was very critical that when I met Maddie, this is my life. This is what I did. It wasn't that I came to paragliding and we had this relationship. So she very much has been very supportive and understood what she was getting involved with. And that I think has been really helpful. But now it has changed that she just turned 8 yesterday. But I can't say actually, Sebrand, if it's just because I'm also 53 now. Is this just age
Yeah.
playing at that card, or is it that she's, I don't know why it didn't impact me when she was 2 differently than she's 8, but she's a really cool kid now. When they're 2, they're just 2. I don't know.
It's just
So now I'm having a lot of fun with her and I'm skiing with her.
yeah.
And I mean, for some reason, the relationship's different I think for a dad than it is for a mom anyway. I don't know for sure, but for some reason it's impacting me more now. I think it's not, I mean, I still go out and fly and I love it. And,
Yeah.
watching you guys all compete in the X-Alps this time, I just kept thinking, God, I'd love to do this again. I mean, I still just I love taking the risk. I love seeing what I'm capable of even now, but I do think about way more about margin. And I
Yeah.
have these thoughts in my head that I'd rather just throw away sometimes about splatting and what would happen. It is something I'm thinking about more, I guess, is my very long answer to that question.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I don't know if it's her, family, relationship, age.
Mhm.
I'm not. Maybe it's all those things. I don't know.
Yeah. No, you brought up that like Fallon Fallon came into this relation knowing what she was signing up for. When Katie and I met, like, yeah, I was rock climbing, but mostly sport. I wasn't doing any crazy mountaineering really, and I just started paragliding, and I don't think she knew what she was signing up for at all. And she's been a total champ, like riding along for this and like adapting. And she's definitely not a high risk person, and I think I definitely push her to the limit sometimes, even just flying with her. And then yeah, her watching me and supporting me in these races is really a big burden uh, for her, and I think like ultimately I'm up for it. Like I want to reassure her, and I want to take what she has to offer in terms of my risk taking to heart. Um, you
Mm.
know, I think that this relationship has the potential to maybe it already has like saved my life multiple times, and uh I see her mentality as an asset to me, um and I hope that I can continue to share some of my risk taking decision making with her so that we can collaborate and find a good middle ground that makes her feel at least a little bit in control of whether or not I do something stupid. um but yeah, it's difficult. It's difficult to navigate for sure. And it's a challenge that I think has really helped Katie and I grow as a couple. And it will continue to. Uh, and we'll see what it does to my progression after we have kids. Um, I can't say. I don't know. I don't know what will happen.
Very eloquently said. I wish I had your maturity and your thought process when I was your age. I wish I did now, actually. Uh, Sebrand, anything before we shut her down here that we didn't hit on that you want to talk about?
Yeah. Yeah. So a big part of this race for me that was actually quite different from the X-Beer even is that I pretty much my whole team had never done a hike and fly race before. Rustam had done one with me the year before, the Dolomiti Superfly, but he's not like a pro cross country pilot. My remote guy has been flying for 5 years, but also not by no means a pro weather guy or a pro cross country guy. We were all rookies. Everybody was a rookie. Um, in the X-Beer, I had Philadelphia, Nell Wolf supporting me, and my friend Victor Burchett, who used to also be a U.S. pilot, and now he's in France with me in Grenoble. But both of them have been flying for ages. Victor for tens of years, and Philadelphia for I think 10 years. Um, and they were able to really remote control me during the X-Beer. Like I was flying places I'd never flown, and they were just like, "Hey, the next thermal is 10 meters to your left, like just push a little further down this ridge and you'll ping off to 3,500 meters." And like, "Oh yeah, here's the convergence line, just fly a little bit more south and you're gonna be in it in the next 5 minutes." um this team was not at all like, they were awesome, and they were able to help me look at like existing lines. They were really able to give me information of what was going on, but they could not tell me how to fly. Um and I think me being fragile at the start of the race, I really wanted that. And I was like constantly being disappointed and just becoming more and more of an asshole, like expecting them to be able to do things, which like going into the race, I knew I wasn't asking them. Right. I
Mm.
knew these guys were as rookie as me or more so. And that was part of what I was excited about, is that we were all going to learn how to do this together. Um, and I think what was so cool is like once I got out of that shitty mindset on day 4, I realized exactly what I needed to be giving them and what they needed to be giving me. And on the morning of day 4, where we were hiking through the night, um, I gave them all super clear instructions, and like everything started to come together. I was like, "David, I need you looking at Andra and Hugo and telling me exactly how much distance they've made every 2 minutes, like how far behind me they are. Tom, I need you, giving me step by step directions on how to like most efficiently make it down the Moreno Valley without running into any dead ends. And Zach and Kyle, I need you to alternating feeding me gels every 20 minutes and water every 15. And then Rustam, I need you driving alongside us, making sure that each of them have everything they need." And like that was like the kind of leadership that they wanted from me. And when I was actually able to step into it and give it to them, like all the team dynamics sorted themselves out, and everything became like by the end of the race, I felt like we were working like a well-oiled machine compared to the start of
Mm.
the race, where none of us had any idea what we were doing. And like that was just amazing. And the amount that we were able to bond through that growth was so cool.
That's a really cool kind of synergy that you build. Then when you go from, oh God, I got to say this, to just everybody doing it without anybody saying anything, just there. That's a neat
Yeah.
thing to observe and be a part of, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so cool. Yeah, the way everyone kind of figures out their role, and yeah, you no longer have to ask. That was really cool.
Sebring, you're awesome, man. I've been really looking forward to this. I really appreciate. I think everybody who watched your campaign really appreciates you and your honesty. And uh, it was bitching watching your adventure, man. It was a lot of fun. And one of the reasons I love this race is just every single person in that and their teams are having just such a special adventure. It's remarkable for all of them. But it was great to taste yours a little bit. But thanks for coming on the show, man.
Everyone that does this race is so freaking cool, dude. I've just been it's been such an honor to get to know all the people that do this race so much better. And I'm in touch with so many of them now. Like just the amount of support that's come out about the broken foot. Like I've been cheering them all on in their 300K triangles in the past week, and it's just been these are going to be lifelong friends, and it was such an honor to get to compete in this race and share that with them.
Awesome, man. Well, good luck. Speedy healing, although I guess just full healing is what we're wishing for here. But get healthy and take your time, and see you when we see you, bud.
Yeah, thanks so much, Gavin. It's a pleasure.
If you find the Cloud-Based Mayhem valuable, you can support it in a lot of different ways. You can give us a rating on iTunes or Stitcher, or however you get your podcast. That goes a long ways and helps spread the word. You can blog about it on your own website or share it on social media. You can talk about it on the way up to launch with your pilot friends. I know a lot of interesting conversations have happened that way. And of course, you can support us financially. This show does take a lot of time, a lot of editing, a lot of storage and music and all kinds of behind the scenes cost. So if you can support us financially, all we've ever asked for is $1 a show. And you can do that through a one-time donation through PayPal, or you can set up a subscription service that charges you for each show that comes out. We put a new show out every 2 weeks. So for example, if you did $1 a show and every 2 weeks, it'd be about $25 a year. So way cheaper than a magazine subscription, and it makes all of this possible. I do not want to fund this show with advertising or sponsors. We get asked about that pretty frequently, but for a whole bunch of different reasons, which I've said many times on the show, I don't want to do that. I don't like having that stuff at the front of the show. And I also want you to know that these are authentic conversations with real people, and these are just our opinions, but our opinions are not being skewed by sponsors or advertising dollars. I think that's a pretty toxic business model. So I hope you dig that. You can support us. If you go to cloudbasedmayhem.com, you can find the places to support. You can do it through patreon.com/cloudbasedmayhem. If you want a recurring subscription, you can also do that directly through the website. We've tried to make it really easy, and that will give you access to all the bonus material, little video casts that we do, and extra little nuggets that we find in conversations that don't make it into the main show, but we feel like you should hear. We don't put any of that behind a paywall. If you can't afford to support us, then just let me know and I'll set you up with an account. Of course, that'll be lifetime, and hopefully you're being in a position someday to be able to support us. But you'll find all that on the website. All of you who have supported us or even joined our newsletter or bought Cloud-Based Mayhem merchandise, t-shirts or hats or anything, you should be all set up. You should have an account, and you should be able to access all that bonus material now. Thank you so much for listening. I really appreciate your support, and we'll see you on the next show. Thank you.